I had an issue in uploading note, but I think some of them said that I've already seen the upload. So I've uploaded the note, a case study, short case study about Amazon, and an article for you to read, and the PPT, right? And in the note, I have embedded some videos. Maybe I have not included here, but if you do a Google search, you can, in YouTube, you can find those two videos that I'm showing today. Okay, let's start now. Good evening, everyone. My name is, okay, it's for ease of understanding. I just put a picture about me so that you know who I am. So many logos, just ignore that. So I'm Gayani Dialves. So I do the co-teaching of this subject of managing operations with Dr. Travis, and Dr. Sakuntala also will be joining. Like you, I have also done the MBA here. I'm an engineer, but now moved to supply chain. So I call myself a supply chain professional now. So I'll be doing 3 sessions, 3 sessions on supply chain related stuff. Plus, on the last day, we have a joint session where we will be bringing 2 resource personnel. Preferably, we get it from past PIM alumni who will come and share some experiences, achievements of their companies related to this managing operations subject, right? So that's the format. So I call myself a pracademic because I worked for almost 20 years in Unilever. And now I moved to, since leaving Unilever, as an academic also. So I call me practical academic. Not that others are not practical, but, and also entrepreneur, because I'm involved in consultancy, professional consultancy. So work as well. So professional entrepreneur. So it's entrepreneurial work. And as I mentioned to you, I was in Unilever in my last job. I joined as a management trainee and then was in the board in the last 5 years before I left the company and to start my own thing. And currently, I'm an independent non-executive director in 2 companies, Singer Sri Lanka and Logicare, a logistics company, and a few other social enterprises. I also do a lot of voluntary work. I was a former past president of Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, which is relevant to my profession now, and also founded Women in Logistics and Transport. I do a lot of work on women empowerment and all of that. And also we'll be taking us as chairperson of Women's Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which is the oldest chamber in the world, actually, although many may not know. So that's about me. If I had time, I would have asked from all of you what you all do. Unfortunately, this is not the time to do that. But if you can tell me, in any of your jobs, any of you are doing, working in a supply chain area, supply chain related, or at least you were partnering supply chain, service or product? Yeah? None of you? Right? None of you have any understanding of supply chain, probably. Is it? Is it the case? Okay, so normally this subject is considered to be, and this as managing operation is considered to be a technical subject, but I think we try our best to make it more simpler so that non-technical people will be able to understand the subject. But what is important for you is you may think, okay, why am I learning this subject? The most important part is supply chain span across organization activities. Whatever we do, there is a supply chain. So when you learn today, you'll understand service or product or anything. So therefore, having that understanding will help you to contribute better because you will be partnering those functions, and also maybe supply chain people are providing the service to you, right? So having an understanding about the function or the operations will help you. I don't know whether you have heard about this. Normally, you say that you have to be a T-shaped person. Does anybody know what a T-shaped person is? As individuals, we have to be a T-shaped person, right? Anybody has any idea? Wild guess? Yeah? If you do a Google search, you can find it. Your generation, most of you are much, much younger, like my kids, right? Probably some of you, right? So therefore, If you don't know anything, search it. If you can search, I have no problem. So T-shaped person is normally, you have to have a specialization in whatever area. And at the same time, you need to have have a good understanding about peripheral functions. So the whole purpose of having an MBA or coming to do an MBA is for you to develop that peripheral functional understanding, right? So when you look back, or when you go and present to your bosses in other functions or at the board meeting, when somebody's saying something, you can easily relate, okay, some bulb will light up. Say, this is what we learned there. At least you know where to go and refer to, right? But nowadays they say it's not enough. You should be a V-shaped person. It's T. It's not only T, you need to have a broader, while yes, you have to be a specialist in one thing, otherwise jack of all trades, master of none, but you should at least keep on broadening that peripheral understanding so that you'll be better equipped to go higher up in the career ladder. Because yes, I mean, I started in engineering, I realized that limited scope, even if I can't be a chief engineer anyway, but if you become a chief engineer, very rarely you can go to a board unless you are in a hardcore engineering environment. So I decided to shift. Of course, the company wanted, if you're willing, you can move to any other area. So I opted for that. And that helped me to get into the board. So sometimes if you want to be a generalist, you have to get that broader understanding whenever the opportunity is given to you, right? So the whole purpose of doing an MBA is also that. You develop that understanding about all the areas, at least some understanding. So now they say, I mean, some time ago recently, they were talking about this V-shaped person. So with this much of knowledge, now you don't need to remember by heart like the school days. Rote learning is not required. If you know where to get information, that's good enough, right? So I don't remember anything. I know where to get information. So like that, if you don't know, you just Google it. But you should know what are the authentic information. There are a lot of things like you guys, MBA students, upload their MBA presentations and all of that. Don't look at those. But real good articles, articles are there where you can refer anything. So you can do that. And you have MOOCs. You know what MOOCs are? I'm just digressing a bit. Have you heard about MOOCs? Yeah. What is it? Yeah, massively open online, whatever courses, right? So Coursera, Khan Academy, Udemy, there are so many online courses that are there. You can, from top universities, you can acquire this knowledge, anything, even programming, coding, anything. I mean, if you're not even linked to anybody, you can do that now. So therefore, try your best. Why I started this is to show that it's important for you to broaden your knowledge in wherever possible, because unlike my days, your days now, you have so much information. Sometimes you get really confused as to what you will do with it. And I wish I had this knowledge many years ago. I would have done different things. So like that. So with that, I would like to bring your attention to the learning outcome. It's very important in all the sessions. We need to understand why we are learning this. And at the end of the session, this is all in the course outline, you should be able to demonstrate knowledge and understanding on how suppliers, distributors, and firms are linked together in a competitive environment through a value chain. So basically, at the end of the session today, and maybe in subsequent sessions, you'll get more understanding how you will understand about these linkages between in supply chain, all the stakeholders. When you know from the beginning, the point of origin to the point of consumption, you and me as consumers, when we buy things, how does it come to us? What are the things that you need to look at? And how this thing happens in a competitive environment. We don't compete alone. There are many players. If you're in a blue ocean, it can be the case. But if you're in a red ocean, I mean, most of us are playing in the red ocean where there is so much competition, right? So therefore, we need to be mindful. So I hope we look at this statement and see at the end of the session whether or to what extent you have understood this. If not, I'm perfectly all right if you say I haven't achieved that, but at least where that you didn't get that understanding, please let me know so that I can at least improve it upon next time, or maybe somebody needs better understanding, because supply chain is a vast area. People do MSCs, MBAs in supply chain for years, but I'm trying to cover all that in 2.5 hours, basically talking about other stuff also. So that's how you need to look back. And also at the end of the note, I also have put a slide on learning journal. So just look at that, right? I always would like to recommend all of you, I do this in my consultancy work plus in lectures also. When you learn something at the end of the day, if you can look back and say, what are the key points? It's a kind of a short note for you. What are the key points? What did I learn? What can I implement this in my workplace? Because your bosses, your peers or subordinates also, they all know that you all are doing an MBA, and they will expect something from you. They would want to see whether you have changed. I mean, when I finished my MBA, when I just got promoted to the board at that time, and I encourage my team to do the MBA, and I always tell them, I want you to come back and implement something from your learning. So honestly, personally for me, although I did it at a later stage in my career, but I did a lot of implementation based on some of the theories that I learned. So it is going to benefit you. I'm telling you, it's going to benefit you, and you will look at things in a different way, from a different lens, because you will try to link up. Because maybe you're doing something, you don't know why things are happening. But when you use some theory into that and refine that, you will get better outcomes, right? It's very important. You might use different typologies, different formulations, problem-solving tools, which you didn't have it earlier. Maybe you didn't understand that, but now you understand it better. So that's the whole purpose. So I thought of mentioning that to you. Some rules. I know phone is an important thing. I'm not asking you to put it on switch off mode, but at least put it on silent mode. If anybody wants to take a call, please excuse and go. If anyone wants to leave the class early, please let me know. Just don't barge in and just go out like that. It's disrespectful for the others as well. Plus, so it's important for you all to do that. And it's up to you what you do, because finally at the end of the day, you have made a commitment to do this MBA, and I hope all of you want to come out and get graduated at the convocation. So to do that, you need to have some little bit of discipline also, right? Okay, is it all right? Okay. I didn't want to scare you, but I just want to tell you this is how I would like to do the class. I'm not that strict, but it's good to have some kind of order in the class, right? So with that in mind, remember, so this may not be your area, but I'm telling you, you will make it. I mean, it'll be useful for you, because after 3, 4, 5 years, now some of my past MBAs are telling, madam, when you told me this, we didn't realize it. Now only I'm getting a project. IT girl recently told me, my client is asking me to do something in supply chain. Now I know, and now phone. So I said, yeah, but at least she had the note, she's doing something like that. So I'm telling you, it might come in handy for you someday, right? And if you're not really involved in that. Okay, now tell me, I just used a very simplest pictorial thing here to show you what is supply chain. For supply chain 101 for school kids also, this can be easily understood, right? Now tell me, by looking at this, in your understanding, what is a supply chain? How do you explain? If a kid asks from you, what is a supply chain? How would you explain in the simplest way? Don't look at theory, just think in your own words. Okay, sorry, yeah. Okay, so she says how raw materials can be converted to a finished product. And what about you? Okay. Right. Okay, and then? Yes. Exactly. So, I mean, both of you said the same thing in different words, but different ways. So what basically supply chain is, somebody has a requirement. Did you do the marketing subject? Not yet. So, I mean, we all know We can't just say this is what we have, take it or leave it kind of a attitude we can't have in these days. That was like many years ago when who's this guy, Model T, that guy said, okay, I have this is black, please take it or leave it. Now there's so much choice in the marketplace. So consumers will not tolerate you if you have that kind of behavior, right? So therefore, first of all, everything starts in the consumer. We all have requirements, needs and wants. For those needs and wants, marketing will get insights and then create a product or improve a product that is already existing in the marketplace. And they will tell the company R&D and all, if it's a new product, just there is a niche, there is nobody is operating in this space, nobody in this segment of the market. So please develop something, some kind of thing. So new product or existing product. So when you decide on that product or a service, then supply chain will have to fulfill that demand. That's basically it's a role of supply chain. So what supply chain does, therefore, is, right? So somebody has something, so they require something, so then you start. First, you need to plan. So I'll later on talk about the details of it. So you need to understand what is the demand in the marketplace, right? Otherwise, you can't be just keep on producing, no? Otherwise, you will be having a pile of stocks. So there are ways and means through demand planning, you can look at historical trends. Now, of course, historical trends are meaningless, right? Because of COVID and all of that and all kinds of changes that are happening in the marketplace, right? Especially in Sri Lanka. So you use demand sensing, various different technological tools are being used now, artificial intelligence, to look at closer to the demand, closer to the market, what is the requirement. And from the demand, you will look at how I'm going to make the supply. So you look at whether you have a capacity in the factory. Are you running all 3 shifts? If not, you have extended shifts, or you outsource it if you don't have capacity, depending on whether your product is, if it's not your core competence, you outsource it. Or you see whether you have enough capacity in the warehouse, right? Capacity in the warehouse. Then if not, we'll have to look at new warehouses to keep stuff, right? We have labor. Yeah, whether we have capable people, whether we have energy, all that we have to look at it. And then we see, okay, this is how you need to produce. This is the plan. For that plan, I have a specification for each and every product. For that, we need to have X, Y, Z raw materials. So I had to go on to the market and look for suppliers, finalize a supplier, then go and buy stuff when we need it ahead of time, because we have already input the lead times, requirements, how much goes into different products, all that in your ERP system. And then you order goods as per the time schedule, and then the material will come. You either directly go to the factory if you follow just in time. If not, you just store it till such time it's being used, and then you manufacture it, and then you store it till such time somebody orders, or when an order comes, you deliver. So you and me will experience that service or a product. And you might have different ways to distribute also. You might directly distribute. If it's an e-commerce, somebody online places the order and then you can do that. Or you might directly sell it through a wholesaler, or you sell it to a distributor. Through that, it will go to a retailer. So there are different models, right? E-commerce space, brick and mortar space. A lot of models are there. So that's whole gamut of things that happen from the origin to the consumption is what is called supply chain. So in the learning outcome, we are saying, how does these things happen? Who are the stakeholders? How things are moving? It's not only the product, right? It's not only the product. Raw material will get converted to finished product. Then accordingly, parallelly, the information also has to move. How much you need it, when you should order, from which supplier, because you may not have only one supplier. You may have several suppliers. Then you need to divide the volumes as per the need. Or you will have backup plan. If one guy is not sending, you have to have another party, right? So you need to have the information flow. You need to have material flow. It gets converted from material to product, and then, or maybe work in progress till such time you need it. And what else moves in the supply chain? I'm just doing ahead of all the sessions, but I just want to ask for completeness sake, what else is moving to do all this? Product or material moves, information is required. What else? Financial. Without money, you can't do anything, right? So you need to decide, am I going to pay upfront to the supplier? What is the credit term? When you're selling things to the distributor, am I doing cash on delivery, or am I giving upfront, or I'm going to get money 1 month afterwards? All that is important because your working capital management is also important. Because you sell once and don't collect money the next month, raw material order, how are you going to do that? So everything has to happen in synchronization. Isn't it interesting to see how things happen in our lives? So from the time you wake up in the morning till you go to bed, I don't think you can think of anything where you don't have a supply chain behind that. I mean, all of us experienced this during COVID. You early morning wake up, you go to the washroom. When you open the tap or switch on the light, it doesn't work. Electricity supply chain doesn't work. If there's a breakdown, water system cut off, or toothpaste you forgot to, that's over. You can't go in your night dress and run to the washroom, to the shop early morning. So many things are there. Then even bread or string hoppers or cornflakes or whatever you're eating in the morning, something has to stock it up. You must manage your stocks. You must know what is the consumption at home plan, and once a week or once a month shopping has to be done. So when we do all of that, how does companies know how frequently you're buying? He may be buying once a month, she may be buying every day, somebody is buying like once a week. Now, like entire population doing different things. And how would companies know to do demand planning, how this happens? So it's complicated. You need to know a lot of stats, you need to know consumer behavior, you need to look at demand drivers, a lot of things have to be looked at, right? So, and then lunch, till you sleep, whole day there, behind that there's a supply chain. So if you look at this, I don't need to go through. So origin, if you are buying this, I'm not attached to anything, I'm not getting paid from any of these companies, I just show this picture. But you sell this product, you go to supermarket and buy, or you just get it delivered to your doorstep, milkman come and deliver it to you, but it has to travel through. This is the simplest one where like farmer milking the cows and doing it and delivering, and fresh milk comes to your place. But if it's a big dairy company like a Fonterra or Cargill's, and all of them do these things, so Highland, whatever, so they have a huge supply chain. Not only that, they have to look at the temperature controls, all that, quality, milk solid non-fats, so people will adulterate with water, you need to look at all of that, microbiological effectiveness, all that have to be looked at, right? So this is a very complicated thing. So you do other things, but the supply chain has to move, otherwise you can't manage a company, right? So let's watch this video. I mean, all what I said is here, but it talks about a product as well as a...
Welcome to Supply Chain Management. Now, I know most of you have spent your childhood evenings dreaming of taking your first supply chain management course. But for those handful of you who might not know what supply chain management is, let me provide you a brief explanation. Let's take a simple product, like a bottle of water. Clean water, a plastic bottle, a plastic cap, and a label. Buying them at the store or vending machine might cost you about $1.50. How much of that do you think is profit? Nope. Wrong. Wrong again. Not likely. Water. A plastic bottle and a label. That couldn't cost more than 50 cents. And if you buy them in bulk, how could each bottle not give you at least $1 in profit? Seriously. If you think you can make $1 per bottle, you should drop out of college right now and get into the bottled water business. You see, this right here illustrates one of the most common consumer misconceptions. Product cost is not equal to material cost. And in business, you don't have the luxury of thinking only as a consumer. You need to think like a business executive, or better yet, an entrepreneur. So, in order to figure out where all that profit went, we need to imagine what it took for that bottle of water to get into your hands. First, you need to negotiate the purchase of the empty bottles and caps. Those bottles will be much easier to transport if they're in boxes, We'll need to shrink wrap those bottles so they don't fall out of the box. We can move a whole lot of boxes quickly if they're all put on pallets. In order to move the pallets, you'll need a forklift, which means you'll need a forklift driver. That forklift will then take the pallet and put it into a truck, which will require a truck, driver, fuel, and insurance. Also, you'll need a label for that bottle of water. Therefore, you need to design the label, print the label, and get the label shipped to the plant. Another truck, driver, more fuel, and insurance. Our water bottling plant won't be free, and neither will the energy it uses. In our bottling plant, we'll have employees and bottling machines, and let's not forget the day-to-day items like light bulbs, garbage bags, machine parts, janitorial supplies, toilet paper, and anything else that will be used at the plant by the employees. Oh yeah, and we'll also need access to the drinking water. Machines will then purify the water. Other machines will bottle the water and affix the labels to the bottles. And still, another set of machines will box, shrink wrap, and then palletize the bottles. In order to move those pallets, again, you'll need a forklift, which means we'll need another forklift driver. That forklift will then take the pallets and put them into trucks headed to the distribution centers. And, as we've seen, those trucks will require drivers, fuel, and insurance. Those distribution centers will also require employees, forklifts, and energy. From the distribution center, they'll head out to retail stores on still another truck, which will require a driver, fuel, and insurance. That store will need employees to unload the truck, stock the bottles of water on the shelf or refrigerator. If you have a refrigerator, you'll of course need energy. If we want to secure our stock, we may get a security guard or a security system. And of course, the store will likely get insurance. Also, imagine the costs associated with returning and replacing bottles that are damaged. Oh, and for some reason, even bottles of water sometimes have 1-800 numbers, which means you'll need a staffed call center to answer the customer's questions about your bottle of water. Wow! All those materials, boxes, people, machines, buildings, energy, fuel, and vehicles, they cost money. Those things weren't free, and they probably weren't used efficiently, and it's likely that several bottles didn't survive the journey to the consumer. Oh, and by the way, the employees at the water company, you know, the ones that work in finance, accounting, marketing, human resources, and IT, they want a paycheck too. So, through that simple example of a super simple product, we're beginning to see that companies face challenges when they buy things, make things, move things, sell things, and service things, which includes repair and maintenance. Oh, and let's not forget, companies need to do all of these things using sustainable materials, energy, and methods. Guess whose job it is to make sure that all these things happen flawlessly, with minimal effort, and of course at minimal cost? You guessed it, supply chain managers. The supply chain manager needs to be able to do all of these things. They need to give the customer the product they want, when they want it, as often as they want it, for a reasonable price, while still managing to make a profit. This requires world-class skills and knowledge in the study of supply chain management. There's that scary term again, supply chain management. Let me try to make it friendlier by shuffling around the words. There you go. The management of the chain of supplies. For some reason, that just seems a whole lot easier to understand, doesn't it? But it also helps us understand the complex nature of supply chain management. I mean, the management of the chain of supplies. Now let's think of other products and what their supply chains might encompass. Hamburgers, sweaters, coffee, tables, cars, and airplanes. Now I know many of you are saying, but I live in a service economy. I won't be manufacturing anything. Wrong again. As of 2008, the US was still the #1 exporter of manufactured goods. Okay, maybe not for long. So let's talk about service economy supply chains. Let's think of something you're probably familiar with, the hotel industry. What do hotels manufacture? Lodging experiences, dining experiences, spa experiences, which altogether make up vacation and conference experiences. In order to do all of these things effectively and efficiently, what's required? Hotels need to buy things like beds, furniture, televisions, cable, food, soaps, towels. They also make things, or in this case, manufacture services, like housekeeping, meals, massages, and special events. Hotels also move things, like transporting clean towels and food to and from the rooms, as well as transporting guests and their luggage to and from the airport. They even sell things, like in-room movies, internet services, and tickets to events. And finally, they also provide services, such as making reservations, organizing events, making wake-up calls, and even cleaning and pressing clothes. Once again, we see that the fundamental skills learned in supply chain management can be used to manufacture service experiences, as much as they aid in manufacturing products. Well, I hope that this has given you an idea of what supply chain management is all about. You see, this is the reason why little kids all around the world want to be supply chain managers. They want to take part in manufacturing the best products and services on earth. So again, welcome to Supply Chain Management, where all of your childhood supply chain dreams are about to come true.
See here, I don't know whether you noticed, they spoke about the service part of it as well as the product part of it. So unfortunately, in this session, we are mostly focusing on the product part of it. So I'll have one slide on service part of it for you to understand, because that is a separate subject altogether. You need to do the blueprinting and all of that. So if somebody is interested, maybe I can share some notes. But what is predominantly known is product supply chains, right? Because even in any service now, if you look at a bank or a supermarket, there is a product side as well as a service part of it predominantly. So there is a model I'll show you later on. It has right. So predominantly you have both. So therefore we need to understand what is more predominantly there for the supply chain, and then accordingly we need to work. So that's why we are mostly working on it, but I have one slide on service, then you will have an understanding on that. So as we discussed, I think from the start of our lecture today, so I hope all of you all are convinced that behind every product or a service or even an event, there is a supply chain, right? Even in this class, organizing a lecture, somebody has to do the timetabling, lecturers have to be slotted, all that has to be done, right? So there are a lot of things that happens, and that happens behind the scene to make this class possible for you all, right? So all that is supply chain, although we don't call it, because supply chain is, as a function, came into this world only in 1982. That also accidentally, a top British logistician called Keith Oliver, when he was being interviewed by Financial Times in the UK, he accidentally said it's a chain of supply. And that's how the word supply chain came in. But logistics was known to the world for many, many years ago because of the military. Because the world wars that were fought, military has to move ammunitions, arms, food, and people, and all of that. Soldiers march on their stomachs, Napoleon said, because supply chain had to be fully functioning for the wars to be won. Otherwise, you will have challenging situations. So mostly a lot of people use these two words interchangeably. So I'll explain to you the difference so that you will use it properly. So what logistics does is logistics move the supply chain, right? So I always say, if there's no supply chain, there's no life on the planet, and we experienced that during COVID, right? I mean, somebody has to be delivered to you. It doesn't just automatically come, no? A lot of work has to happen behind the background, right? So that's how important it is. And all of us know the value of supply chain when you're devoid of it. That's what we saw. You're waiting in queues and all of that. Globally, the ship ports were chock-a-block because something somewhere got stuck. And therefore, everybody started to talking about supply chain. And so much so that, of course, Joe Biden is not contesting for the election. When he got elected for the first time, supply chain was in his 100-day plan. And he set up a supply chain task force because during the height of COVID, they had huge problems, right? Chips were not, chip shortages were there, and defense issue, there was a big problem with their security, therefore. So lots of issues were there. So now they have a supply chain task force also in his 100-day plan. So that's how important that everybody has realized the importance of supply chain, which was previously a back door thing. Now it has come to the front stage, right? Back end function. So what we call supply chain is this. There are many definitions. Sorry. Yes. Yes, others also can hear several. Yes.
Yeah, so I have heard this question from our logistics people.
Yes.
So they say this, okay, so we need to import parts
Yes.
and we need this in emergency situations. And there can be situations where these things come on a poor day in the context of Sri Lanka. And also it might come in the night time, so you don't have, people on night shift. So how do you work on this?
No, company operations have to function whether it's a poor day or whatever. But it's a thankless job. During COVID, and we all saw like some of them even didn't go home in the port, like they were working in 3 different groupings and they were not meeting each other. One of the ports which continuously worked during COVID in globally also was Sri Lanka, right? So, it's a work ethics also in the company, no? So I think you need to have proper...
It's clearing the goods that
Yeah, I know. So sometimes port also can be very funny, port officials, customs especially, and they go, they go on strikes or work to rule, and you use WAF clerks to do the clearing. The documentation is not right. I'm not, you need to understand the real problem, why it is the case. Probably it can be one of your MFRP projects for your company to improve that, if that is a big issue for the company. So what I'm saying is you need to agree you must have clear SLA, service level agreements with your other functional people, right? If it's going to affect your activity, then you need to agree, reasonable service level agreements internally also, not only external customers, but internally also. If, because finally company must win. For that, people cannot work in their own little silos and do their own thing to maximize their own functional agenda. All of us must break the barriers and work as one team. Finally, the organization should win, not the individual function. So if it's reasonable, if it's possible, that should be done irrespective of whether it's a poor day or not. So I would suggest, without knowing the full details, I can't give you answers to that, but everyone must respect each other's lead times, understand that. And sometimes exceptions can happen. If shipment is delayed, then you might have to air freight it, or maybe you need to do it. But if that is the norm, then it's bad. Exception cannot be the norm, but if it's an exception, you manage the exceptions differently, right? But some companies, everything is urgent. That's not possible. It's literally impossible for anybody to work like till very late every day, because you will have other problems, safety issues, you'll have human errors, all those things can happen as well, but you need to be mindful of that. So good, you should stop me and ask questions. You can challenge me. I have no problem if you challenge me. I don't know everything, but I also learn from you with your perspective. So you can always ask questions from me, right? So supply chain, what is supply chain? Many definitions are there, but I just picked up this because it talks about an important thing which I have highlighted, which is called the relationship. Upstream and downstream. Upstream is what? Supplier side. Downstream is customer side. Because supply chain is all about managing relationships. Yeah. If you're not a good relationship person, interpersonal skills are not there, you can't run a supply chain. Because you have to deal with so many parties, external and internal. And you need to understand each other's requirement. Without that, you can't manage. If you're doing demand planning, obviously, then you work in front of a computer, then you don't need that much of relationship. But I'm saying there are certain aspects. If you're a procurement guy, if you're a logistics guy, you have to deal with different people outside. And even planning people also, you have to work internally for sales and operations planning, understand what the company target, what are the things, promotions you're running, new product innovations, a lot of things you need to internally discuss, right? So you need to be having good listening skills, understand, be receptive to ideas. All that is important. But it's a thankless job, I must tell you. And my team used to work till 2, 3 in the night, and it's really stressful. But every day is a bad day, something or the other. So that's what I like to be in supply chain, because every day is different. And if you're a good problem solver, engineers are good at with analytical skills. So probably I really like that. because you keep solving problems every day and it's different. And you start to give new ideas, do things differently, right? So if you're a good analytical person, most of my teammates are engineers. In fact, my husband is a professor in the University of Toronto. He said, you just drag engineers and put into supply chain, waste of effort. But I think they thrive in supply chain because they also feel sometimes if you're not in a like a person who really wants to work with machines and all of that, but they also would give you a different perspective, right? Yes. Supplier says that it's going to come today. It doesn't arrive. Now, recently, because of Red Sea issue, some problem, supplier has a breakdown, things don't come on time. But you schedule your production because I told you, demand plan, supply plan is there. Now factory is waiting for the production to start and they don't have a buffer stock. Whatever that is stock is also eaten up. And in the meantime, you did all that planning 3 months ahead. But when it is closer, market dynamics have changed, right? Then consumers don't buy that. Then you might have to change the plans. Then you might have to order again, change the plan and tell supplier, please don't do this, but you can't stop the tap and water won't stop in a supply chain. Because by that time, the order that you have placed, the things are in the pipeline, in the ship. You can't do anything. So you need to be at it. You need to talk to your suppliers. You need to have a good relationship. Now, if the demand has changed, if you don't have good relationship with your supplier, they won't change the production plan and do that. You need to have a good relationship builder. During COVID, if you didn't have any relationship with your supplier, they won't prioritize your product. There's so much backlog to do that. So I used to personally, now my team used to do that day-to-day things, but I used to always talk to the CEO, managing director. So you need to build that connection. It's maybe that you're Unilever and you're big, but still for all, if you don't have a good relationship, your team will suffer. The team also must have relationship at different levels, but you have to have a good relationship. I mean, aren't we happy when people talk to each other well as human beings? So similarly, the same thing. When you're in a stressful situation, they will also start to prioritize. Prioritization happens with people with whom they have a good relationship, right? So it's very important, right? So that's why I always like this upstream and, sorry, yes, tell me. Yes. No, talk. No, you, I think, change this. Right.
Madam, does the supply chain ends with the customer or the consumer?
Yeah, because sometimes if they are unhappy with the product, if you return and all of that, you have to manage that after sales service and return management and all of that.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Beyond consumer, who's there?
Yeah, waste management, does it comes under supply chain?
You mean disposal?
Yes.
Now there are rules and regulations globally also. You can't just dump things. Don't switch it off. So you can't dump. There is even Sri Lanka and our own environment authority also have a, this is a very interesting subject, pet area. I don't want to go there. I will talk for hours otherwise. So polluter pay principle. Where if you are a company and let's say soap, your consumers after using the soap, just putting the wrapper to the river. You can't say consumer responsible. It's that as per the law, the company who's producing that should be responsible. So still it is not gone into law, but there is a Central Environment Authority law like that. So ideally, it's circular supply chain, they call it, right? Cradle to cradle. Are you into waste management? Geocycle? Okay. Right. So cradle to cradle, not cradle to grave. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, talk louder, otherwise online students will not hear. You have. So you keep there with you. Yeah.
So what are the exceptions in supply chain management? Because, for example, there's a vessel, like it got caught to fire in the middle of the sea. So the chain, it stops there. Or are there exceptions that can compensate and complete the supply chain completely?
Yeah, so these things happen. I mean, even after Express Pearl, there are many other ships in Australia, various ships. Last few weeks also a lot of things happen. And close to Mundra port in India also another one happened. So they'd somehow they douse the fire, but these things are part and parcel of the whole thing. Now Houthi guerrillas coming and landing from a helicopter onto the ship deck and in Ethiopian guys, right? Remember the Red Sea issue? You see like a movie, no? So those things, now supply chains are very unpredictable. That Red Sea, suddenly that nobody's taking. So everybody goes round the Cape of Good Hope. It'll take 12, any shipment. Now, but I'm saying any one ship supply who's supplying from Taiwan to Netherlands, normally it takes 22 days. Now they cannot do that because of these still Red Sea issues there. So they go around Cape of Good Hope and go. Additionally, there are 14 days. Just imagine the implication to supply chain. And some of my students in the tea industry told me like they now have real struggle when exporting tea. Tea export from here to Europe takes additionally 7 to 8 days, more than that sometimes. So just imagine you have to plan well ahead, plus you have to have stocks available, and they have to carry stocks on the other side. It's going to be a huge cost to supply chain. So these problems, and normally we call it black swan. You know what a black swan situation is? COVID was a black swan situation. Next session, I'll be talking about it. Black swan, normally swans are white, no? Right? Black swans are unusual. So black swan incidents are incidents where there is very low probability of occurrence, but when it happens, the impact is very high. That's what happened to COVID. So these kind of events are not happening like once in a lifetime now. It's going to happen back to back. Earlier, before even you start to breathe from a previous issue, now another one can. Now California, that side you have forest fires, somewhere some other issue. So lots of things happening back to back. Impact is so much. So supply chain disruption is going to be the order of the day. So much so that I introduced this supply chain risk management as a new session for your batch now this year. Because no point in talking about other things. When there is a real change happening in the global arena, we must talk about it. How we need to manage it. So I introduced that module this time. Next week, I'm going to talk about that. So we will go more into that there. There are so many issues that are there now, which actually we can't even understand, fathom how it's happening. So unless you have a good understanding about your supply chain, they call it in the banks, how do you give loans to people? What do you do? Anybody from the bank? Anyone from the bank? Are you working in the bank? No? In the banks, they do. What is this? KYC. Know your customer. Now I've coined a word for KYS, know your supply chain. If you don't know your supply chain, you will have a huge problem. You must know whether you are directly getting from the supplier. COVID, I mean, some research that was done during COVID by Dun and Bradstreet, they were saying top companies, Forbes, like top companies, 92% didn't know who they're beyond their tier 1 supplier. Tier 1 supplier is immediate supplier. From where those guys are getting it. So it's scary. That supply is getting from somebody else now. If some disruption happens, everything will come to a standstill. If you have a backup plan, that's again next week's session, you will have problems. So I'll stop at that because next week I'll be talking more about that. Also coming back to this. Yes. Talk louder. Don't switch it off. Yeah. Save time. What is it?
Food rescue.
Food rescue.
Yes.
What is it?
Like collecting surplus food
Ah,
from
yes.
people and then distributing for the poor people like us.
Yes.
Are there any logistic things?
No, that's another thing. So disaster logistics, humanitarian logistics, food rescue, actually things are happening, but people don't do it properly. Because I saw somebody through WhatsApp saying, if you have leftover food, please tell us some after Dane or something. You're just so many things you don't know what to do with it. No, now you can't find beggars also on the street. So sometimes you might throw it away or give it to somebody known people. How much to eat? So we need to actually have now these apps are there. No, you guys, new generation must do that. You need to have a system where somebody have put that information somewhere in a central place so that people will get to know where it is. right? Using Google Map and whatever. I'm not a tech person. So these are things you should look at for social problems. If I were you, if you have a liking to that, you should do this as a project thing for your research, MFRP or whatever. Because these are social problems. If you don't have a problem in the company to solve, select something which is more meaningful. It gives a lot of satisfaction, right? It gives a lot of satisfaction. At the same time, you solve a problem also. And you will get good marks because nobody else do this kind of thing. A lot of students, everybody doing the same thing. Go to the library, look at the past report, එකෙන් පොඩි කෑල්ල වෙනස් කරලා ගන්න. එහෙම තමයි ගොඩක් ළමයි කරන්නේ. So you should do something different and innovative. These countries like this because we don't creatively think like that. But when you go overseas, you do become very creative. But no, not here. Right? Okay. So this is what supply chain is, upstream and downstream relationship. But what we do is superior customer value at less cost. Very, very important to understand. Logistics. Logistics is storage and movement. That's all. So fulfilling your order is what supply chain, logistics does. Right? So in simple terms, for ease of understanding, all these complicated definitions, if you ignore and say what supply chain does is this: the right product from the right source to the right customer at the right place, at the right price, at the right time, at the right quality, in the right quantity, in the right way. If this becomes wrong, only those problems will happen. You ask, no, what can go wrong? So when something goes wrong, you need to have backup plan. How it needs to be done, right? When you're launching a product, you must do the product in such a way, design the product which is more acceptable to the consumer, right? Consumer must like, you get insights and design the product. So if you have got the right insights, your product would be more acceptable to the consumer. You didn't do the quality session yet, no? Dr. Sakuntala will be doing that, I think, week after. So she will explain to you how you understand the quality requirement, getting the needs and wants, and how you decipher that and build it into the product, right? The last one, tell me what you mean by right way. It's none of the things above. There is another R somebody told me in a class international workshop I did. I forgot what it is. I should include that also. Last month I did a session. That one person from Thailand mentioned that actually. I must include that. I forgot now. So what is right way? Very good. What were you saying? Yeah, ethical. Yes. Nowadays, everyone is concerned. You can't do things the way you want now. What are the simple things that you can look at to claim yourself as ethical company? Huh? Yeah, what do you mean by ethical sourcing? Yeah, okay. So there are fair trade guarantees, like various things are there, no? What do you call that? Forest Alliance, what? Rainforest Alliance, various things are there. I mean, I've forgotten all this. So many things are there. And also, not only being ethical, being condition is part of that, no? No, there is another important one. Yes, sustainability. That supply chain is impacting the environment quite a lot because we extract a lot of resources from planet Earth, right? So we must do it mindfully, right? We can't mindlessly do that so that we are jeopardizing the future generations' consumption. So you have to be mindful, right? I mean, how many of us, especially the girls, go and buy things in any sale? Like that, we keep buying things. And kiya kapi andinawada, right? And we just dump it somewhere. No? So fast fashion, as long as you have it, we just got so unsustainable consumption. So as long as we have unsustainable consumption, manufacturers also producing. Now globally, not in this part of the world, Western world, they are now pushing and saying, no, we don't want to buy things from any part of the world where they are doing unethically and also unsustainably. So if you say this is women-owned businesses, they are buying from artisans, that kind of thing, you have a big market out there. I'll tell you one, Celine, you know, Celine company. They do this handloom material in Kalatimirigasaya. They have the factory in Kurunagala. They do a handbag from banana fiber. They used to have a market in Netherlands. They used to sell it for €250 or something. And Selena, the daughter, is the one who's now revolutionizing the things. Their mother was a founder. She told me in a function once that now she's selling the same product because with the banana fiber, with the blockchain traceability, they've got some grant and used with blockchain, you know, for it is coming. It's women who are doing this businesses, artisans in that different areas, all of that, and they pay fair wages to women and men equally, all of that. And now that is selling, can you believe, insane, 750 euros in the Dutch market now. Just imagine how people are paying money for the right thing. Insane if somebody buying like that, but still for all people who have the money do that. Right? So that's why supply chains are under very close scrutiny now because of these things. Right? So you need to be mindful. You can't be, even now, next slide, you will see a lot of things that I pasted there. All these companies, they're attacking you go to internet, you see all kind of examples, even Apple also. Apple, Samsung, they are getting cobalt from Democratic Republic of Congo. They are the biggest supplier to the world. 60% of the cobalt output come from those mines. They use small kids, the small holes they have to get the cobalt. And then they bring all the soil and from that they separate. They use like 3-4-year-old, 5-6-year, because through those, there's a video, you just go and check. There was an undercover video from BBC where how they do that, and there are a lot of terrorism there and all of that, and some people are chained and they won't allow to go out of that. So they're saying, Apple, Samsung, you're using this, you can't ignore that this is not your guy, but because you're buying only from these guys, so you need to boycott them or get them to do the right thing. Child labor cannot be used. Children should be in school. People should be paid decent wages, right? All those things are important, right? So this is what happened. I don't know whether you remember Nike. They used child labor many years ago, before the internet came in, before 2000 odd. Then they were using, and even now when you go you see the logo there. Slavery in the shoe. If the shoe fits, still this video, the pictures are there in the internet if you search. So it's bad for the company's image. They were sourcing it from Pakistan. That supplier outsourced it to another contractor. That contractor was using child labor. You can't say, I didn't know. You're responsible for your suppliers. You need to have proper contracts. You need to go and audit them and see how it is happening. Very important, right? So these are things that will happen now. This Apple supply chain unethical. There are so many articles like that. And this is what happened in Rana Plaza way back in 2012, I think. All these big companies like H&M, all these Victoria's Secret, most big companies were sourcing things from Bangladesh. These suppliers building one fine day collapsed with 1,000 odd people buried alive. 2,000 got injured. And why? Because he kept on building one on top of the other, different floors unethically without approval. And one fine day it collapsed. So this man was the owner, finally was put behind bars, but of course, unfortunately, many lives were lost. And after many years, next. See, global brand to pay 2.3 million for workers' safety in Bangladesh garment sector after 5 years. So now they felt guilty because they kept on reducing the price and pushing these companies to produce at a cheaper price. This is what they do. So you need to pay decent, fair wages to people. Otherwise, people will take shortcuts. So you need to have proper things. So supply chains are now under close scrutiny, and you cannot get away in this technologically advanced era. Because anyone can take a picture and upload somewhere. I don't know, a few days ago, on BBC, they were showing Yves Saint Laurent and some other brand, I forget what it is. In Egypt, they were sourcing one of the flowers, and jasmine flower. Early morning, young kids with the mother going and plucking. Maduro talatala, they are doing it. And that was shown on BBC. Shame on you, YSL and some other top brand. Because they were using that in their perfumes, sourced from me. So now it's instantaneously people are showing. So you need to be mindful. You need to be mindful, because if you're working in a supply chain, I mean, you live and all very strict. I used to get proper verification from my suppliers. I go and do that. Even other countries, globally, they do the verification. So multinationals do it very well, but But some other companies also now have to look at this, right? So supply chain is a network, although we call it a chain. It's not a chain, not a linear thing. It's a complex network because you have a immediate supply is called tier 1. That guy supplies tier 2. That guy supplies tier 3. Till the point of origin, like the farm again, we had the milk farm. Starting point is farm. So you may be only dealing with this guy. But if you have a good understanding, KYS, remember I said know your supply chain. Sometimes during COVID, I know a lot of companies, they only knew their suppliers. They didn't even know from which supplier they're getting. And they were getting from traders. Traders can bring from anywhere. So how would you know from where they're getting? So you don't have a supply breakdown in supply chain, right? Yes.
When it comes to the supply chain, is the end product, or let's say Apple,
Yeah.
does whether it's ethical issues or delays, who does the rest, like how is the accountability or responsibility like distributed, or who does it fall on the most?
So
or is
if
that
you're marketing something as Apple or A or B or whatever, you are responsible. You may be outsourcing it, you may be subcontracting. Nobody will bother about it. You have to be responsible. It's the way you select the right partners. I mean, you also push them and say, I want your supply chain to be sustainable. So if you want to be part of us, if you want to consider you as a supplier, then you have to comply with this. It's tough. I remember Unilever went into a sustainability mode in 2008 during my time. And it was tough. Local suppliers have other priorities, not being sustainable. So we had to work with them, hold hands, tell them how to do, take them to other countries, show them how they are doing it. So it's a long haul, but you have to start baby steps if you really want to localize and help them. But some of them have really gone up and now they're doing really well. They've gone outside also. Now they are in export markets. So you have to make an effort, no pain, no gain. If you want to claim yourself as an ethical company, you also have to make an effort. You can't always put everything in your pocket. You need to also invest and work. It's good for business. It's making money while doing good is what sustainability is all about. Right? You just extract as much as possible greedily, and doing that is not going to help you because you're taking your future generations' resources unsustainably. So making your process efficient is good for your business. Yeah, a lot of wastage we have. First step in sustainability is wastage reduction. When you reduce wastage, obviously your input is more efficient because you're optimally using the resources without any wastage. Right? Now, in the next, Dr. Sakuntala will talk about lean management. He talks about that. Remove all your non-value adding activities. Nobody, you and I, are we willing to pay for some company's wastage? We are not. So you should not buy anything which has defects. You must complain to them. We are a nation who don't complain. We just stomach everything and wait and vote for the same politicians also. If we don't demand, they will also continue the way it is. We must demand value. Other hard-earned taxpayer money otherwise. So we need to do that. So that's very important. So supply chain is not a chain anymore because there are no networks. You can order from ship, you can transport through ship, air freight it, send it through lorry, many transportation modes, many way of doing business. As I mentioned to you, it can be through wholesaler, retailer, online, many different business models also. So it's a complex network. It's like a real cobweb. Not only one supplier, no, you have many suppliers also, backup supply. If a particular ingredient, particular product has 50 ingredients, those 50 ingredients cannot be only with one supplier. No, you need to have backup, at least backup. So 100 suppliers. If a company is selling 1,000 products, just imagine how complex the supply chain would be. It's a nightmare. I'm telling you, my first job in supply chain was raw material procurement. If a shipment doesn't come, I am not sleeping because everybody will come to my desk and supply chain, everybody, like a salespeople, brand manager, even chairman knows, he'll come and ask. So you need to know how things are happening. Know your supply chain, very important. First thing you need to do, from where you're getting, how you're getting, you must know them, whether they are bringing it from ship, whether they are freighting it. You need to know. Go to the root, get a deep dive in whatever you, not only in supply chain, I'm saying anything that you do, unless you have a good understanding, you are relying on somebody's information. You must first understand, even if somebody comes and tell you something, you know whether it's the correct information or not. You can challenge them, ask the right question. Then you will get the real thing. Otherwise, when you go up the ladder, whatever the Goliaths are saying, you will listen. They can take you for a ride though. So like what happened to Godabe Rajapaksa? It will happen, honestly. Because you don't have the brains to think, because you haven't gone and dirty your hands, right? And you don't know how things are happening. So in Japanese, Dr. Travis Suda said, he mentioned about Gemba, no? What is Gemba? Not a frog. What is Gemba? Yeah? What is it? Gemma means go to the place. When somebody says, I have a problem, breakdown in the machine, go to the place. Office again, in ivory tower, don't try to solve the problem. Ask question how it is. No. I of course go to the lab. I know every worker how it happens. You don't need to do every day, but you need to go and see what's happening. At least when they say something, you know. So you need to know. That's why I said that we thing is very important. If somebody, now you say, some people are saying, oh, a day I can't come, this and that. But at least if you have some understanding how this clearance process is happening, you're not the one who's doing it. But at least when somebody try to say something, you can actually challenge and say, how can you do that? Why can't you do it like this? You can challenge the person. See, unless you challenge, you can't get the best out of people. Right? I always ask, I said, I won't give an answer, but you tell me how you want to solve this problem. If they can't, you give a solution. But you need to get them to think. They don't think. They don't think. That's the problem. Sorry. Cobwebs inside your brain. That's what I said in Sinhala, right? Right. So very important, right? So your break is coming up. I'll quickly move on now. So yes. So look at this supply chain, complicated supply chain, like a small $40 cotton pant. Just you can go download this picture, see how complicated this simple thing. Just imagine an aeroplane or some complicated thing. Nuclear plant would be such a complicated supply chain. Yes, what is your question?
Yeah, in a highly competitive market, especially in developing countries like Sri Lanka. Now, you said we should ensure that the suppliers do the right thing by providing fair wages to their workers. Now, don't you think that will increase the cost of production or your product cost, where maybe you are also competing in a highly competitive market? Now, how do you balance that?
No, I mean, so if you look at Sri Lanka's labor costs are very high if you compare with the region. So that's why we are uncompetitive. We can never compete with Bangladesh and China of the world because our labor cost is very high. Our labor laws are also very archaic, right? Very ancient, right? So we are not a destination for low cost stuff, but we are a destination for high end thing. Like MAS Brandix, what they're doing is we are designing. We are doing niche products, performance-based kind of product. Anybody from MAS and Brandix? Yeah. So you guys know this, right? So high end. So we are competing in that kind of market because we don't have. So it's good to, I mean, you're not paying like exorbitantly high salaries, but you have to pay at least minimum wage. I was at an interview panel very recently, a graduate. We were going to pay 50,000 for that person, but this person in some Matale, some place, she's finished her degree, arts graduate. She is currently working in a company for 15,000 rupees. Can you believe that? After spending 3 years a degree, somebody is using her with 50. So my test says, not go to university. I mean, this is crazy, no? Some companies are not paying at least, I'm not saying pay 100. I mean, Unilever and all maybe pay starting salary is very high, but at least a decent salary for a graduate. But of course, graduate also must have some brains to convince people and talk sense. But our graduates also through rote learning, no interview just go like that. But our employability of graduates is a problem in this country because of that. So can you believe 15,000? So I'm saying, if you want the right output, you need to pay people. Well, if people are unhappy, all this managing business, all that kind of stuff, people, organization behavior, when you do that, you'll understand how to motivate people and all of that. you must do the right thing. You must comply with the laws of the land. And if you want to do exports by paying such salaries, EU and all will never let you do that because they need proof, right? If you're doing agriculture in this country and sending to the EU, now they, from this January 1st, they want you to prove that it doesn't come from not from deforested land. There is a new law. And you cannot use slavery, even in the UK now, entire EU has now signed up for all this new legislation. So if you are planning to export, you cannot, no customer will buy because those markets, people will not do that. So I'm not saying, first of all, you should not be in a market where everybody is fighting for the same small piece of cake and you don't have any competitive advantage. So you need to understand what is your core competence and identify and see where the market where you should go and compete, where you have the opportunity. Exports are people, everybody, one person is starting now cinnamon, everyone is getting to the cinnamon thing. Everyone is, so අපේ ලංකාවේ එහෙම තමයි වැඩ. So you need to understand properly which country, otherwise the Western markets are saturated now. You must go to other markets, right? So you need to understand these facts rather than mindlessly, joining the bandwagon and doing things. So that's where the problem lies. So important to understand, if you don't comply, you will not have a long-term sustaining business. That's what happened in Bangladesh. They paid small salaries because they kept on reducing because those guys pushed them. But later on, now that guy is behind bars and then lives were lost. His business collapsed. And later on got compensation. No point, no, lives were lost. So now they are doing that. Of course, there are good companies also. So that's what it is, right? So with this, after I finish this, let's break for tea. So I mentioned to you that I will also talk about the service aspect here. So if you classify the service supply chain, right, in this, so if you look at this axis, the y-axis service focus, so high service focus or low service focus. This side, if you look at product focus, low product focus and high product focus, right? So if you have a kind of a general supply chain where you're neither a service or this thing, then you fall into here. And if you're entirely product oriented, product focused, like even a bakery industry or soap industry or oil and gas, whatever, that's entirely product oriented. So more focus there. So then you are here. But then you also will have entirely service. If you look at 100% service, like hospital has a bit of both also. Maybe Uber, right? Entirely service, no? So that kind of thing. But now companies are also moving to, so now in this kind of these kind of thing are called typographs, right? Now all these theory that I put in here, I may not give a lot of examples. So as a learning for you, but my questions, I mean, Dr. Travis and myself, when you put in the exam, questions, we ask you all to put practical examples. So I will not ask you to remember and word to word say this. But if I say, identify examples for servitized supply chain, or for each of these, maybe I might put even this typograph and ask you to give examples with explanation, something like that. So apart from what I give as examples, you all also should think of examples on your own so that it's easy for you to understand and relate it, right? So look at this. Service industry can be entirely like Uber, right? Entirely service driven. And servitized, have anybody heard about servitized supply chains? Servitized is high on service, high on product. Let's say, so what it means is, if you're in a product supply chain, you're also in a service, both. Like banking as a service, right? Or maybe now recently, Volkswagen in Germany, apart from manufacturing cars, they also bought over a company called Eurocar. In the Europe, you have that car, the rental company. So it's a kind of servitized. They do both, right? So they actually became #1, overtaking Uber. Uber also. So Uber is 100% service kind of thing in that kind of market. So now more and more companies are moving into the service space also, because sometimes, especially in medical industry, also high capital intensity is there. So you can't be, buying things and doing things. So you need to also look at that as a service. So end-to-end service. Let's say you have you are an energy producing, whatever equipment company. You have solar panels and all of that. Now you also tell them, I will look after end-to-end operation. So I'll do the maintenance, I'll do the servicing, I'll look at the optimization, all of that. So you provide the service. If you buy something, they also provide you the service contract and all of that. So that you don't have the headache. The whole thing they will look at. Production plus that. So that's called servitization, right? So now more and more companies, cars as a service, that's called outcome. This word is called, I forget the name. It's called outcome as a service. See, servitization, outcome as a service, another word to use it. So outcome as a service. So you look at that aspect as well, because now product alone, you may not be able to survive in the market, right? Okay, let's break for tea. Yes, let's come back in 20 minutes time. 20 minutes time. Yeah. Okay, I don't know whether those who are joining virtually has any questions. I couldn't ask that. Can I? Do you have any questions? Or you gone to sleep after? Okay. It's very refreshing to talk to you all like this, because I do the entire PG diploma here like virtual. Sometimes very rarely students open the faces, camera. Okay, welcome back. So I'll just talk a little bit about the supply chain functions and the stakeholders and other areas, bit of theory. So if you look at, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, supply chain start off with the demand planning, the planning function, right? So plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So planning is a very important thing, is a backbone of a company. So start off with planning. So planning involves demand planning and supply planning, which I explained to you earlier. So we can't go beyond what this kind of a top line information because of the time availability. So then we have sourcing, right? Sourcing involves procurement. I mean, sourcing and procurement are not the same, but sourcing involves procuring goods. And also when you decide that I am not going to do it, I will outsource it to somebody, right? Can somebody tell me criteria for outsourcing? When do you decide to outsource? What kind of activities do you outsource? Yeah. It's not only the cost. That's the biggest problem that everyone has. It's not because of the cost. She says when something is costly, you outsource. It's not really the case. Yeah, so, I mean, it is costly because of some reason. Yeah.
Some competent somebody.
Yes. What is that called? Co-competency. Yeah. If you're specializing in something and you're the best in the market and nobody else can do that, such activities you don't outsource. Now in Apple, what is their co-competency? What is the co-competency? Apple computers and phones and laptops and all that. Design. So they would never ever outsource that. If you look at a Apple design, the packaging, it says designed in whatever, California, whatever. Right? So they're good at design. Right? But source the different components from different parts of the world. You Google it, you see nice images on from where they are sourcing and all of that. And then you manufacture where? In China. Foxconn and Pegatron. And last week, of course, already they have operations in India, in Chennai and also in Hyderabad. Last week, they actually started manufacturing for the first time Apple 16 Pro phones in India, Chennai factory. And they invested $1 billion in expanding their operation in Hyderabad during COVID. So these things are happening because they want to remove the Chinese dependence, and Foxconn set it up there, right? So the manufacturing is not their core competency. That's not their forte. So there are contract manufacturers, Foxconn and Pegatron, and both Samsung and Apple are producing in that factory. Of course, they have their own demarcated areas to do that. So you outsource, remember, outsource when it's not your core competency. To answer your question, you said cost reasons. The cost is a secondary thing. Because cost is, for you doing, when you do it, it's more expensive because you're not the master of that job, no? If you try to design an Apple phone, you can't do that because you are not good at that. If you're in manufacturing and you try to compete with those two companies, then obviously you can do that because you have the capability to do that, if that is what you are trying to do, right? So you need to understand. So because of that, the cost is coming down, because if you're not the expert in that, obviously you have to incur a bigger cost to do that because you have to learn and, keep up to whatever happening in the market and all of that, right? So that's not the primary reason, right? And when you will never kind of USP, your unique selling proposition is that core competence that you will never outsource. So that's why companies who are involved in manufacturing, they outsource the logistics operation because there are companies who are doing logistics, right? I mean, Haley's Advantage, John Key's Logistics, and different Hemas. Now Hemas, this recently again started. So like that, there are companies who are doing logistics, and the company that I'm one of the directors, Logica, companies logistics karana. So they are entirely a company of logisticians. So they can do it well because if you're good at manufacturing, they are good at doing the logistics. So give it to the people who can do it better job than you. Yes. Yeah, it is. But of course, later on, when I talk about the supply chain drivers, you will understand it's actually not only, decision making involves other functions. It's called make versus buy. Make versus, you do a business case to see if you do it by yourself, what would be the business case? If you do it, give it to somebody else, so business case, if it's favorable, so based on the ROI, you just hand over, but you need to involve the the finance people. Sometimes some of the jobs, marketing will say, no, this is our IP. No, I don't want this to be manufactured or given to somebody else. So that's a cross-functional driver. Later on, when I explain, you'll understand what I mean here, right? Okay. Then manufacturing. Manufacturing involves production and packing. Get the raw material, produce and packing. Sometimes you do the production, packing will be done by somebody else. Downstream now in Unilever, when we used to do sunlight and soap packing, we do the processing part of it, which is like high-end manufacturing, but the packing part, like putting everything into box and all that, we used to, from the factory, there was a pigeon, what do you call that, hole in the wall. So through that, it comes into a warehouse, a contract manufacturer to put into the box. Nothing big about it, no, so just put it into the box. So that end-of-line packing is done by contract manufacturer, who are also logistics provider. In the warehouse, it automatically comes and it goes on a conveyor to the racks like that. So packing. Right? And delivery, logistics part of it, right? So logistics is, I use the layman terminology for your understanding. So logistics can be inbound logistics. What is inbound means what? Bringing in raw materials. Raw materials bringing into the company through ship or whatever. Outbound is finished product. Reverse logistics is what? Returning. If you're unhappy, you return. Or like, so one of you, he's gone missing. So one of the guys asked about the waste management, cradle to cradle. So you might collect it, rework or whatever, right? So you will have a processing center to do the processing part of it. Or if you're unhappy or after sales service, so somebody within the warranty period, you will bring it back and do that, something like that. So that's basically in a layman's term what supply chain functions are. So basically what happens in supply chains, seller, producer, customer in a very basic way. So you will have raw materials or packing materials or maybe even energy, right? Or services or components, right? These are things that we buy from various suppliers. Then you have producer. Producer can be a component from a seller. Original equipment manufacturer can OEM, right? And then finished goods and service also can be supply chain. And then finally, whatever that you produce, person who's receiving the product is the customer, receives the finished product or service. And so all that is now you are asking what kind of problems somebody was asking, no, what kind of problems can supply chain happen? Can you experience in supply chain? So in different areas, these are things can go wrong. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list. I just listed out few things. So operationally, if you don't plan very well, it can be out of stock. You didn't plan very well. Some demand forecast is not right, and all of that. So products can expire. Yeah. Or you will have excess inventory, or when you get the material, you have to update your inventory records, at least within a decent time frame, within 24 hours or whatever. Otherwise, your physical stock is there, system stock is different. There's a discrepancy. So you have to do cycle counting, not the physical verification at the end of the year for financial reporting. You have to do every stock that you touch, you need to at least within the day you can count and verify. Otherwise, at the end of the year, if you try to do it, very difficult to look at the history and identify why things are, there is a discrepancy. So you have to do cycle counting to understand. So you can have excess inventory or some shrinkage losses can be there. People can, stolen inventory can be there if you don't have proper controls. Or when we will also have promotions, marketing people would want to do promotions, buy one, get one free, or some extra percentage quantity, or consumer clients in the market, in overseas market might say, I need special design for this particular Christmas season. Packaging should be different, like, reddish kind of whatever. So promotional requests would be there for particular seasonal activity or any other thing. So like that, production, again, you asked about what are the issues. So materials shortages can be there. They may not even supply the requirement on that particular day, and you may not have capacity. Your utilization is very high, right? You didn't properly factor that in your supply planning. If you have to have X many number of units to be produced, you need to see, for you to produce in whatever that month, you have to back calculate and see how much you can produce from that machine that you have. That capacity, rated capacity versus actual utilization. Production, what you can now take as an output. So you need to check that. If you didn't get your numbers right, or maybe it's an inefficient system you have in the machine, not maintenance done properly, or some other breakdown can happen, and therefore you will have capacity constraints also. Or you already have capacity constraint, you didn't see that well ahead of time, because expanding capacity will need time, because CapEx approvals, all that will take at least 8 to 9 months, and then setting up time, ramping up or shoes, all that will take time, right? So you have to plan well ahead. So when you know this is the demand, you fit in those information into your capacities and see when you are going to go out of capacity. And then you plan that well ahead of time, tell the board, we have a demand like this, forecast is for the next so many years is like that, this much of growth plans are there. Year on year, this is how the growth is, looking at the market. And therefore, we will run out of capacity in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, based on some assumptions. Based on that assumption, you will go out of capacity. So you have to plan well ahead of time. So those things, you have to do it in production stages. Look at that. Then logistics, late shipment can happen. And again, these days, shipping prices are going up, rates, because of all these issues in the market. It has not gone up during COVID time. Some of the rates, from one destination to another, which was about $4,000, has gone down to $14,000. Like during COVID, like $40,000 level. Right? So now also slowly it's going up because of various issues that are happening. When ships have to detour and all of that, the cost will go up. So you will have to be ready, and you have to know what's happening in the global market. If you're a procurement person, if you're a supply chain person, you have to be really up to date with what's happening. Watch what's happening in the global arena. And multinational companies have people looking at only the global situations and looking at specific materials to buy from global huge volumes. And even shipping rates, well ahead of time, they negotiate and block it and all of that. So small companies can't do that, but at least you should know, okay, this time of the year, there can be a drought in this country, this part. If you're buying from them, or Chinese New Year is happening in January, whatever, they'll go on leave for 2 months. So buy well ahead of time. So common things that we all know, we know. So Anyone who's buying something from China must be ready for the Chinese New Year well ahead of time by October, November. Get materials well ahead of time. Like our Auru, they won't also come back after going to their villages. So similarly, other things also can happen. So you can proactively work on it, right? So then procurement also same issue. Supplier will not send the whole quantity. External events can happen. The issues that I spoke about, and there can be excess or obsolete inventory, right? Raw materials you will bring and it is not relevant now. You have relaunched the product and that ingredient is not required. You didn't factor that when you're launching timing plan. Normally you try to tail it off and finish off the stock. So if it's not worthwhile selling the finished product, you might write it off. So you have to look at that, right? And customer service. Customer service also. So it's very important. Actually, service is also part of supply chain till the customer receives it. So your claim management, right? Any missed appointments or whatever customer satisfaction issues, complaints, all that is there. So when the operational people are doing all of this, the leadership team must look at the other stuff. They must look at some crisis situation, how you are managing, because they can't be getting involved in day-to-day issues. They must have a business continuity plan. You know, I mean, this is during wartime kind of what we do, like a war, kind of a war room. You know, you have single-minded focus on getting out of that problem, right? Everybody should activate that war plan if something happens, like a fire alarm happening. You can't just try to look at people and look at a plan when fire is ongoing, no, it erupts. You have to activate the plan. So everybody should be ready to do that. So other thing is you need to have data available and your question on accountability, very important. So top team must ensure who should be responsible for what and clear who should do what by when, has to be very clearly articulated in the company so that everyone will then, it's just a push button stage, everything should be there. It's a matter of activating. And during COVID time, a lot of companies really suffered because they didn't have proper business continuity plan. They didn't have plan B. They were relying on plan A. They were very happy. That's why companies are looking at China plus one strategy now. You can't pull the plug out from China overnight. It takes years, but while having China, they have a backup plan. That's what Apple did it. They have now beefed up production in India, right? Latest phone is being produced in India now. Right. So it's important to understand those aspects. So as at the beginning, I explained to you that the supply chain design flows, how it happens. I don't need to go through again. So material flow, information flow, fund flow, all that happens. So you need to understand that. Some other things that I explained earlier, I will skip it. You can understand. So as per the supply chain, SCOR means supply chain operations reference model, SCOR. Supply chain operations reference model. This is one way of classifying various activities on supply chain. There is a professional body called Council of Supply Chain Management in the US, and they have defined this. Some companies are following this model to define their supply chain. So in the performance management session, I will talk about how to set up your entire supply chain structure hierarchy based on the SCOR model so that you get an idea. And this is, they talk about supply chain as plan, source, make, deliver. So I explained to you earlier. So the terminology they call plan, source, make, and deliver, right? And return also, reverse logistics, right? So you have your own company plan, source, make, deliver. You have your supplier also can have it. Maybe supplier may not do everything. Supplier may be doing make and deliver. Or customer, maybe if you take a supermarket, they may only source. Now if you look at Cargills or Keels, they don't produce everything that they sell there, no? Maybe some other things, cordials and jams and all, they have a factory. But the rest of the things they don't produce. They only do selling, delivery, right? I actually wanted to do an exercise. Sorry, I took some time. So think about it as an exercise by yourselves. Identify any supply chain of your choice. Some of the exercises that I asked you to do, even if we are unable to do it in the class, try to do it because similar questions can be there in the exam. So if you attempt it in the class, at least if you have any questions, you can ask from me. So it's a basic thing. You all have a good understanding, hopefully, about supply chain now. So identify any supply chain of your choice, maybe a bread supply chain or some water supply chain, whatever. You pick up something and map the network. You can put block diagrams, yeah. Network from supplier to consumer and identify the stakeholders and product information and fund flow. What are the things that you need to look at? Information. What is the information you need? In the previous slide, you have that. See, I clearly mentioned here. When you say information flow, you need to know the cost, capacity, make a replicate karande pa. Related to that, you just say what is that you require, right? So that you know, even reverse flow, you have recycled materials if you have in the company, like that. So do that exercise. I was planning to do it in the class in groups. Probably today I spoke a little bit more at the beginning. So next day we'll do a group exercise also in the class, or a quiz next time, Kahoot quiz or something, so that you guys, I can test whether you understood whatever, right? So like how when you want to drive a car, you need to have a properly serviced car. No, you need to have a driver who's competent, having a driving license. And you need to have fuel in the car. Then only you can drive the car from A to B. Similarly, in supply chain, for you to, without any problem, to drive a well-oiled supply chain, you need to have these 6 drivers. So different books talk about different things. But this is one way of looking at it, right? So in order for the supply chain to function, you need to have facility. You need to have stocks, inventory. You need to have transportation. You need to have sourcing. You need to have information. You need to have pricing. So I'll quickly take you through, not in detail each and every one, but you can read and understand. Look at each and every one. Now, top 3 is called logistical drivers. Why? Because like the question you asked, who should take the decision on the outsourcing? Not only by themselves. So logistical drivers are things that they themselves can manage. Logistics people only. Other people's involvement is not required. But if you look at these bottom 3, sourcing, you need finance people, marketing sometimes. Information, if you want to buy a ERP solution, you need IT people, finance, all that. Same way, pricing, you need to get marketing support and all of that. So, all these things, you need to get other functional involvement as well. So that's why it's called logistical drivers and cross-functional drivers. Maybe at the exam, I'll ask, pick one logistical driver or pick one cross-functional driver and explain what, something like that, with examples of your choice, something like that. So then you should know what a logistical driver is out of the 3. Or maybe, I will not say define supply chain drivers, never learning. No? So you need to pick something and then learn with examples so that I know you know that, how to apply, right? So one by one, I'll quickly take you through what facilities is. Facility is a place to store things and produce things. If you are a factory which is producing everything for the customer, then you need to have a factory and a warehouse. But if you're a trader, what do you need? Trader imports and sells. So what do you need? Only a warehouse, storage. So it all depends on what you do. If you're a manufacturer fully fledged, you need facility, manufacturing, and storage. So a facility can have 2 ways of defining. Dr. Travis will tell more details in his layout design. So it can be a product focus and a process focus. As like in the servitization matrix I showed you, like a service focus and a product focus. In a product focus environment, it can be, factory can be set up in 2 ways. For example, product focus is you have activities happening sequentially one after the other. When one thing's happen, then you go to the next stage, finally, product comes out. It's like an assembly line, automobile manufacturing kind of thing. So you do one thing, you then different things come on the conveyor, you keep assembling things and a car comes out. So that's a product focus. Each line is aligned to a product. You might do the changeover things and maybe the next product, when you come, you might change. But process focus is not based on the product, based on the process. Let's say if you go into a car washing station, there are different stations doing different things. Some other people might want a full car body wash. Some other things only want a whatever, podi kayalla. Some other people may not want something. So everything, washing station, polishing station, different things are there. So process focused things, or maybe in a hardcore engineering, manufacturing operation, the lathe machine and different machine. Now the AutoCAD design and all of that are there, but you will have different things. So many products can go to different process equipments. So that's called process focus, right? You don't need to remember by heart it, but I'm just showing you this is how the supply chain facility will operate, right? Just have an understanding. Then the other facility is the warehouse. In a warehouse, there are many ways you can store things. You will not, one size will not fit for all. There can be many. So there are 3 ways you can store things in a warehouse. Is like this. Each product in a company that you store is called a stock keeping unit, SKU. Take a water bottle like this. If this is a half a liter, no? Yeah. Then if you have 1 liter bottle, it's another SKU. If you have a 2 liter bottle for bottle cooler, then that's a different SKU. So even if it's the same product, even if there is there is some carbonization here, so then it's a fizzy water. That's a different product. So there should be a way to identify different products. When an order comes, you should know whether it's a 500 or a whatever sweetened water, whatever you can flavor water, whatever you can do that. So that kind of storage. So wherever you are having different SKUs, you store those SKUs together. Mostly FMCG companies, right? FMCG means what? Fast moving consumer goods. So lots of items are there. In a supermarket, if you look at 14,000 type of items can be there. So it's like even a small pin, even another SKU. Small serviette, all that is a different SKU. Supermarkets will have different types. So each and every one should be stored separately in a sorting center. Then when they are shipping up, putting into that place, you should be able to identify. So you can store it based on the stock keeping unit. It's a very traditional approach. Then job lot storage means all different items that are required to make a product are stored together. Right? If you are having a specialized equipment, A, B, C, D, E, F, G items are stored together. This is a specialized product. Okay, another product will require A, F, G like that. They are together. But that kind of product is problematic. Why? Storage methodology. Yeah, you don't have capacity. You need many football stadiums to store like that. So when you use that kind of thing is when you don't have a big volume, different specialized products, only you use job lot storage. Like a small, like a workshop kind of place, you might do that. So mostly it's stock keeping unit or cross-docking. Anybody have heard about cross-docking? Yeah, what is it? Just take the mic and speak. Yeah. Pass it quickly. 8:30 time, half an hour only. I have a lot to cover. Yeah.
It's a way in which they utilize the warehouse in a way that if the size is one, you make sure you dock it in one area.
No, it's not that. So cross-docking means you don't store it. Now, normally when an item comes to the warehouse, you bring it, check it, put it away in a rack. It's called put away. When your order comes, you take it back and put it and ship it out. Now, cross-docking doesn't have put away. Cross-docking means if it's a fast-moving item, you just bring in different inbound lot trucks will bring stuff. So you then A, B, C from different trucks, you consolidate the shipment and off it goes. So within 48 hours, without putting it away, you just keep it in the marshalling area, the scheduling area in the warehouse. Post unloading, mix it and sell. Now this can be done in a fast-moving area, fast-moving products only. Tell me.
If it is shipping lines,
Shipping?
the cargo logistic companies.
You're talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether they also do cross-docking. Yeah, I didn't know that. So maybe so I'm not referring to that. This is talking about inside a warehouse. So not outside. In a terminal, no. I'm not talking about are you working for a terminal?
No, I used to study about supply chain. So
okay, good. No, let me read also. I can't remember in the shipping industry how they use the terminology, but thank you for highlighting that. I don't know whether they also use cross-docking, but what I mean here is cross-docking is, actually this picture will at least depict like this, cross-docking. So you have inbound trucks coming like that. In the warehouse now, put away means you have this kind of space here. So when stuff comes, you keep it here, sort it out, and in a truck we'll go and put it in the thing. Put away means from here, put it on a rack. But here what it means is, they have only drawn this picture here, but this space, you use it, everything comes here, then you mix from here, 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 whatever, and do the consolidation, off it goes. This was pioneered by Walmart. Even if you go to PETA, you see cross-docking in a crude way. Lorries come from different parts of the country, and then lorry to lorry cross-docking happening.
Does
Right?
IKEA also do this?
Many companies are doing it. Even Unilever used to do that for Sunlight, because Sunlight every day, like 5-10 lorry loads, each distributor will buy. So we do that. We don't put it in the warehouse. From direct actually, we do drop shipping. We directly ship it out from the factory. Because no point in, because every time you touch a box means it's a non-value adding thing. In a warehouse, you should minimize looking at the throughput. How do you touch less? If you touch it, it's a cost to the company, because truck has to go there, somebody has to supervise on all of that. So minimum touching is the theory in rule of thumb in warehouse wherever possible. So you have to look at the throughput, movement of stocks, offtake, all of that you look at and decide these kind of products I do cross-docking. These kind of products I put it away till, because there are fast moving, slow moving, medium moving items. You need to decide that. Yeah. Yeah, that's the challenge here. So you need to have a very good, now Walmart and all, they actually, when they send the order to the customers, they tell them how to load it. The order of loading also they say, so that they don't waste time in unloading. So they look, so that's why you need to have a good IT solution for this. You must link up your demand plan, orders, the whole thing, and the inbound logistics, and then you plan. And also you must have a very reliable transportation system. Trucks, but then after you talk it out, because your only cross-docking means 48 hours maximum, then it's chock-a-block, because there are no trucks coming in. So you need to coordinate. And I know some companies in Sri Lanka do that. When you, let's say if you had to deliver to Jaffna in a 40-footer, on the way you do multiple drop points. So what they do is halfway when you go to Damula, Vaunia, truck halfway empty, because you already dropped off the stocks. But the balance 40-footer is only like filled small space. So why take the whole thing up to Jaffna? So what they do is they have a system. You have to have a good system to that. So they coordinate with your distributor in Jaffna and bring a small demo butter and carry that. So lorry to lorry cross-docking. In Vaunia, that's happening in Sri Lanka now. So there are way to reduce costs. You use multiple loads together, and then up to a certain point and beyond you can't do that. So then you use a small demo butter and lorry to lorry is cross-docking happening. So then you can save money. So the return journey, you can pick up something and take something in the 40-footer. So if you have a proper coordination, reverse logistics, you can look at that. Yeah. So inventory, stocks, very important. Stocks, you need to have cycle inventory, means if there is a between shipments, if that doesn't come, how will you manage? So you have a stock. Then you have safety inventory, is where if there's a demand fluctuation, to cater to the fluctuation in the demand, uncertainty in the demand, you keep some stock. So all that is number crunching, all that is required based on the lead time, the movement, all that has to be looked at. Inventory is a subject in itself. And seasonal inventories, like we all know, Christmas happens in December. April, you have Urdu, some other festival. All that is there. So you plan. You can, actually, that's the easiest inventory to maintain, because you know you can plan well ahead. But demand uncertainties and supply disruptions, very difficult to predict. So you need to look at the supply reliability and then look at, okay, this guy is always prone to mistakes. Either you remove them and bring, until such time you have a system to do that. Or maybe, yes. Yes, so you need to also look at that aspect also. So you need to then tell your suppliers, you need to have norms. If something has like a 6-month shelf life, you must have a fast way to pick it up. Maybe you use air freight or whatever, if it's very perishable. Then you tell them remaining shelf life of the product at the time of shipment should be 90%, something like that. So at least then you have some time, and you also should have norms before shipping it out to your customer. You need to have, because nobody would like to buy something which is closer to expiry, isn't it? So even supermarkets, they always put the products behind. So they follow first in, first out. So, I mean, I always go pity passing guard, but you need to also, these are techniques, because if there is an issue, then you need to look at how the movement happens. Then you look at the volumes, and you look at a different way. Then if your margins, you need to fix it. A lot of things have to be looked at if you're air freighting and all of that. Yeah. Discipline, and you need to have SOPs, clear guidelines have to be there to manage that. Sourcing, I explained extensively, so I'm not going to touch about that. So whatever you do, you need to maximize the supply chain profits, right? And transportation, pretty straightforward. There are many different modes that are there. What's the most environmentally friendly transportation mode? Yeah? What? Quickly. 2020, I had to play, I think, in the next half an hour. Which one? Bioelectric and high. Yeah? Yeah? Oh, electronic අමතක කරන්න උදාහරණට බඩු ගේන්නේ නැහැ electronic කරා. Yeah. Yeah. Rail, who's for rail? Raise your hand. Okay. What are the others saying? Who's for ship? Okay. මෙහෙම කරනවා සමහර වෙලාවට. Huh? Pipeline. Actually, that we'll have to debate a lot about it, but I think the most environmentally friendly is ship. Why? Those who said ship, tell me why. Why? Huh? Yes, it is cost effective. And what is that? Now ships are there, like how many TEUs? Big containers can be carried now. I think 22,000 or 23,000 now, right? Isn't it? You're a shipping person, right? How many? 24,000, right? Yeah. So 24,000 containers can be bigger ship that. So that means for a longer distance, you can carry a bigger volume, meaning per nautical mile, the impact carbon dioxide emissions is less because you're carrying a bigger volume. That's why rail is cheaper on land transport than the truck, right? Cost-wise also, they are the cheapest. That now shipping industry is also going through decarbonization. Instead of the normal fossil fuel, they are also going into methanol, ammonia, green hydrogen, and all of that stuff, right? So it's happening. By 2030, IMO has given some targets. By 2050, everything should be whatever green. So I don't know, they are behind schedule, but that's what is happening, right? Information, no brainer. Without information, you're groping in the dark. So you need to have information to coordinate day to day, where to ship out things, how many orders you got. So you coordinate all the activities, production schedules, inventory levels, transportation routes, all that we have to plan. For that, you need to have information and some solution, software solution, right? Warehouse management system, transport management systems, whatever, if it's available, ERP. So forecasting and planning, you need information, right? We must know what is the future demand, how you need to manage it, how you need to look at forecast. Different scenarios are there. Now, volatility is so much because of the economic condition in the country. So lots of challenging situations are there. So you cannot, from the human mind, do that. Excel-based, not possible if it's a complicated product portfolio if you have. So you need to use technology. Now, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all that is helping to really look at, refine the demand plans and look at the trending. All these repetitive tasks can be done by those, and then demand planners can look at strategic decisions based on those information, because repetitive tasks can be done by these different advanced algorithms are helping us to do that. Pricing is very important because supply chain is actually sitting on a huge cost base, right? Cost of goods sold. That is Turnover minus your profit is cost of goods sold. Bulk of the cost in a company product is supply chain cost. Any guesses how much? Roughly around which range? If you're selling something for 100 rupees, assuming you have, right, tell me what kind of cost that supply chains are sitting on it. Yeah? What percentage? 100 na kiya. Nobody will humiliate you. 60%? Any other? 70? All depends on the margins. But actually, procurement cost is around 60%, but rest of the cost put together, manufacturing, all of that, 70 to 80%, assuming that there is a 20-30% margin. So it's a huge cost. So that's why I said supply chains are so powerful, they don't know how to create value to the company. If you really can talk in the language that the company understand, you can really create value and company will start respecting you. So you need to understand how you can create value. In my last slide, I show you that, then you should talk in the language that the company board understands, right? So there are different ways you can do that. So this is the big picture in the supply chain drivers, because in a company, you have a strategy, competitive strategy. Then based on that, you will have your functional strategy. Since we are talking about supply chain, you need to see how the supply chain strategy is implemented. To drive supply chain strategy, you need to use these logistics drivers. Through that only, you will implement your strategy, right? So there are two ends. You can run your supply chain efficiently, or you can run your supply chain more responsively. Efficiency focus is what? If you're running an efficient supply chain, what is the focus? Cost. Your focus is mindlessly trying to reduce cost. You're doing, so it's a bottom of the pyramid, you know, mass market products. You try to market in a mass way. But if you're looking at a responsive supply chain, that means you're looking at a niche product, right? So like that. So this is niche. This is mass market. Marketing people will know this. So this is mid-tier level. So you can make money in a company by keeping a small margin and selling to a bigger population. Same kind of thing you can do by keeping a high margin and selling to a smaller population. Either way you can make money. But here it is crowded. Here is not so crowded. If you have the right value proposition, identify the right, whatever the product, then you can make more money, right? So you need to see if you're in this end, you will have to be managing your supply chain efficiently. But if you're in this end, you need to manage your supply chain in a responsive way. So accordingly, your drivers will be different. Meaning, if you have a responsive supply chain, how would be your transportation? MAS people will know. Victoria's Secret, those days when they have that fast model, high margin, they want everything when you send the order this Friday, next Monday, it has to be in their stores. Now they're closed down, right? Yeah, they're closed down. So to do that in 1 week in the US shop, can you ship? You can't. But you need to air freight it. Now to air freight, your margins have to be so. They are charging a premium. So you negotiate with them a premium product, but you can then charge a premium and you can afford the air freight cost. You understand? So that's how you connect these drivers. So you use a air freight, fast transportation mode, if you want to be responsive. But if you want to be efficient, everyday kind of use product, you ship it out because you can get a better scale advantage there. Right? Same way, you use the train. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka uses only 0.3% or something, 3% freight through our railway. So like that, right? So like that, you need to convert that. Same way, the pricing also. Facility also. Inventory, you should keep buffer inventory. You can't keep a lot of inventory for efficient product, because it's a low margin. So low margin means a lot of people will buy. So therefore, demand is there. So you can produce, keep on continuously producing. But these kind of products, you can't keep the stocks like that, because niche, if it doesn't sell, you will have a problem, write it off cost. it will hit your margins, wipe out your profit in no time, right? So like that. So in supply chains, however much we plan, we see a lot of complicated things, right? We don't properly, I'll show you a video, then you'll understand what I'm saying, right? This activity is called bullwhip effect, right? It's a very common thing that happens. Bullwhip means when you whip a bull closer to you, the ripple, if the height of at which the ripple will go up is very low. But as you move away from that, it is becoming very high. So that's, I mean, the effect is the trend, how it gets projected is like that. So that's why it's called bullwhip effect. Now, what happens is, if there is what it means is, if there's a small change that happens in the downstream supply chain, that is at the customer end, if you don't read it properly, you just have knee-jerk reaction. You just blindly keep on increasing upstream at each level of the supply chain, when without knowing exactly why this demand spike happened. Later on, it can get magnified to such an extent it become unmanageable, right? Let's say suddenly I have a dane or some festival at something in a particular area. So I go to the supermarket and buy huge volumes. Now, if a company who's supplying to that supermarket thinks that the sales guy, oh my God, my demand has gone up. He doesn't know why suddenly the stocks have gone up, gone out of the shop. And he will go and tell warehouse, now stock up. Now this particular product is selling very fast. Now warehouse will know, okay, now to be on the safe side, these sales guys might ask for more. So he'll jack up a little bit and keep some buffer and ask, if they ask for 100, they'll say, I have 150 from the factory. Factory will say 150 to 200. That guy will say, another person, quantity increase. So every time, each and every linkage in the supply chain stakeholders, they all jack it up to be on the safe side, because we know how the behavior happens here. Not sure, no, in case if they ask for more, I'll keep some buffer. So you ask for X quantity, but you X plus some delta. Everybody keep that additional quantity. By the time next month, normal way. By the time you can close the tap, I told you, no, supply chain tap cannot be immediately closed, because by that time supply has increased the production and he is now shipped out. By the time it comes, demand is normal. This is exactly happening because of the human behavior. However much I teach, I myself have gone through this whole messy situation, we don't learn the lesson. Why this is happening, you look at the video and tell me later on. What can be done? What can be done to prevent bullwhip effect? Tell me two things. Some of it is already there in the video. What can be done? What can be done? Yes, because everyone is working in their own little silos, very tunnel vision. You don't talk to each other. You break the silos, talk to each other. I mean, now if you have 1,000 or 100,000 shops in the country, if you can't be talking to everybody, no, like that. But you need to have a mechanism. If you're a salesperson, you have a particular geography that you're responsible for. So you have to have a system to look at the past trends and see whether this is possible. And you see a spike or, a trough, whatever, then you need to also, don't wait till it happens. You must start looking at the trends. Nowadays, all this information can be predicted, right? So you need to talk, you need to have review meetings quarterly, you need to discuss the strategy, what kind of things. I remember once we are one of the biggest modern trade customers, modern trade in the sense supermarket chains, right? Now Cargill's, I think now Cargill's has about 600, 700 supermarkets. Now every year they actually open up 100 supermarkets. Every year they keep opening up. Now, if you're a modern trade manager in the company and if you don't know how many shops they are opening, because every time they open, they go and fully fill up like huge portfolio, entire portfolio, they fill up in the store. So just imagine suddenly like the entire requirement of stocks get wiped off and supply chain is really in doldrums when that happens. So if you don't have a plan in the strategic planning review stage every year, you have to do budgeting and all of that, no? So you need to sit with your customers and understand what are you planning to do. And you as a company will say, yes, we plan to launch this new products. They will say, I'm going to open X many number of outlets. So you know what kind of products they will sell. Maybe big express Cargills or big shop, mega, whatever. So different shops will have different type of products. So you need to do your numbers and homework. And those things you should build into the demand forecast. Then when your company planning it, supply chain will factor that. So everybody should work as a team. And when I go to meet supermarket chains, I take my other people also. Like we sales, all of us do your homework and go and negotiate with the supermarkets. So like that, you need to do your homework. You need to have annually, when you do annual planning, budget planning and all of that, you need to check with your big customers what their plans are. So factor that in your planning process. And then you need to have a mechanism to feed in information. Like what you said, communication is key. And you need to ask when somebody suddenly pick up some additional stock out of the ordinary. What is this? Why is it? Is it there's a big demand or some sudden fluke incident, whatever? So then you will be able to do that. So companies should integrate. Now, if you have a big strategic supplier, you need to have a system, integrated system, so that visibility is there when something happens there and you can feed in information about your stocks. So you can seamlessly work there. But however much you teach, this problem exists in supply chain. So that's why we are teaching you. So all man-made issue. Because of human behavior, humans are not learning from their mistakes and keep doing the same thing over and over again. So trend analysis have to be looked at. Okay. So the final few slides, right, where I have uploaded an article, Fisher article. Look at that article and read it. And I have an exercise. Actually, I thought I'll do the exercise in the class and then do this as a homework. Pretty straightforward one. Now, this one I'll quickly explain to you. Now, I explained to you earlier, there were two strategies that you can adopt. Efficient supply chain or a responsive supply chain. Now, this is a little bit more where you have two other things also added to this. Now, if your company needs to identify what is the strategy that I should adopt for my supply chain, there is a methodology to do that. You can't say entire company will be efficient supply chain. Or you can have entire company, I follow one strategy. You can't do that. So what you need to do is you need to first understand, read this article, Fisher's article. It talks about, first of all, you need to identify whether your product is a functional product or an innovative product. Once you identify that, then you know whether your demand uncertainty is high or low, right? So functional products can be straightforward FMCG kind of product. Innovative product can be something like a phone kind of thing, right? Keep on changing. So you read the article and then you'll understand. And then you need to see, when you're selecting the right supply chain strategy, you need to first look at the what kind of demand uncertainty exists, what kind of a supply uncertainty exists, right? Because demand can vary, fluctuate very vigorously or without, hardly any change based on the product, right? If it's a FMCG product, all of us need it every day, no? So anyway, people are buying. So demand is fairly stable. Such products, you don't have to worry that much. But if there is a innovative product, means keep on, you have to keep innovating. iPhone 16 Plus, I heard from one of the Taiwanese colleague of mine. Now there are also chip manufacturers working on 17 and 18 also now. So they are constantly looking at, depending on the competition, if they have a better features, they will quickly, because they do in the, back burner, those chip is the main thing in a phone, no? Phone or a computer. So you use that and then quickly do the other accessorizing part, right? So like that, innovative product, because every year, like Apple, I remember sometimes two versions, they just launch it within a year. So such products are innovative products, keep on launching. That products you cannot use the efficient supply chain. You have to quickly be responsive, right? So depending on the product that you have, you change your strategy of the company. Maybe in the same company, you will have both these strategies. Certain products may be everybody's product. Certain products must be very niche kind of product. So then you will follow that strategy in that. Based on that, your supply chain drivers, whether you use a airplane or a sea freight, now in the same company, MS and Brandeis, all of them, they have all models. Victoria's Secret, that fast model, they followed air freight. Other model, they use sea freight. So like that, they have different, same company can adapt different things for different products, right? So it's actually the tailor-made strategy for the product portfolio and the product nature of the product, right? So that is one aspect. And this side is, first of all, you understand demand uncertainty. Other side, you also have to look at the supply uncertainty. Supply also can be uncertain. If it's an established product, that is called a stable, coming from a stable process. So for a toothpaste or something, they have not changed that much, no? Same way, their methodology has not changed. So chances of having a disruption or uncertainty is very low there. Because same old product, but if there is some new way of doing something, or 3D printing, you get it out of 3D printing. So 3D printing has been there for some time, but it has not really got off the ground yet. But it's something new. We are still learning how to do that. So that is like evolving process. So therefore, there can be supply uncertainty, because still you are learning on the go how to perfect the operation. So depending on whether you have a demand uncertainty or supply uncertainty, so if the demand uncertainty is low, it's called a functional product. If the demand uncertainty is high, it's called an innovative product. If the supply uncertainty is low, you call a stable process. If the supply uncertainty is high, you call an evolving process. So depending on whether if both are low, you follow an efficient supply chain. If supply uncertainty is low and demand uncertainty is high, you follow responsive supply chain. Now these two are the ones I earlier explained. Now there are two other things adding to the portfolio here and adding to your complexity and to your mind to think about these two. Because nowadays we are going through this. Professor Howley is a famous professor. He was I think he was in Harvard Business School or whatever. I actually had the privilege of speaking with him at a conference. He spoke first and then last month virtually. So he spoke first and then I was going next. He's still like very agile and all of that. So he actually, Professor Howley's, it's called Howley's uncertainty matrix. So there, if demand uncertainty is low, supply uncertainty is high, you call risk hedging supply chain. If both are high, you call agile supply chain. Now, nowadays, these two are very relevant now because of the constant disruption that we see. You have to hedge against the risk. So many supply chain risks we see, and agility means you have to on the go adapt and quickly move forward. In software, you have no agile strategy and all of that. Those who are in software industry know this. So you need to be agile. You have to be nimble. You have to quickly respond what is happening in the market and adjust your supply chain. So that means both are high. Demand uncertainty is high, supply uncertainty high, you follow agile strategy. So that is what you need to look at. So you need to read that article and then Fisher, identify examples. I gave few examples, but think of many and other examples and think of your own company. What can be fit into those four the quadrants and see what you can do. This is as homework, but other one also do homework because I couldn't do the group exercise today. So I think with that we conclude, but this is a very important final slide, I think. Yes. So I mentioned to you at the beginning, supply chain is sitting on a huge cost base, and also supply chain creates a lot of value for an organization. Just that people who are in supply chains don't know how to market it and tell the company, this is what we created value for the company, and improve the profits, increase the turnover. So I just wanted to, I always do this for my team. So I now used in my lectures during my Unilever days, I should do this so that they talk in the language that the board understands. So that it's easy for us to show our contribution to the company and they gain something out of it, right? Because unsung heroes those days, supply chain, although now people have come to the front end. So if you look at supply chain, in a company, tell me, in a company, what are the 3 most important things for their sustenance? What are the things that are important? Nothing to do with supply chain. No? I'm asking a general question. There must be accountants in this class. Who are the accountants in the class? Any accountants? I'll look at your information and come back next time. Tell me, out of jokes, tell me, any accountants in the class or anything to do with Sima Karua? No. Where are you all working in these companies? All marketing. Okay. See? So tell me, you tell me, what are you pushing for the functions to achieve? What are the Vadagatmade? Where are you working?
Software companies, Cillian Technologies.
Okay.
Mainly we are pushing mainly for data from customer side.
Okay, data. Okay, just stay at that. You were saying something. Reducing the cost. You're telling the next level stuff, but I'm asking for yeah. Sorry. Sales, right? What did you say? Sales? Yeah. So in professional sales means what? Turnover. Yeah, in a company, right? We say turnover, no? Right? So you look at your turnover, right? මේක තියෙනවා ඉතින් මොලේ තියෙනවා නම් බලන්න පුළුවන් මේක නෝට් එක හරිද පොඩ්ඩක් හරිද හොඳට බලන්න අන්තිම මොහොතේ I uploaded so you may not have seen that, right? So actually companies are focusing on turnover. No? You must sell more turnover, but mindlessly you cannot sell because again ඔයාගේ debt problem debt or you don't collect money, then you have a problem. Non-performing loan, මේ බැංකුවේ non-performing loan වගේ තමයි. So you need to lot of debtors. You don't collect money. So much debtors, right? Then what else we do? You can't mindlessly do that, but you need to also make a what? Profit. Otherwise you can't survive in the long run, right? So while doing so for your continuous operation of the business, what do you need? What do you need? Are your strategic plan? Cash, that's the right word. What are the cash consist of? Yeah, so cash, no, roll karanne pa. Now you just first production and you sell it. Now working capital එක ඕනේ හදාගන්න. What are the constituents of working capital? Inventory, debtors and creditors. ඔය තුනනේ. ආයෙ වෙන දෙයක් නැහැ. තව ගොඩක් other financial indicators are there. CapEx and ඔක්කොම කතන්දර තියෙනවා. Capital ඕනේ ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා. But I'm saying basically for tracking my day-to-day running of the company, these are the basic things that you need. No, you need in a what you call turnover, right? Then you need profit. You need cash. Now this SME and all of that during the economic situation, the Parate law and all of that they are talking about in the media now, is because they didn't have the cash flow. So they got into the non-performing state, and then not willful defaulters, they had a problem. So they have gone to the crib now. Most of the some $1 trillion Sri Lankan rupees are required to get them out of the woods now. So they're pushing and they're going to IMF and all of that. So I mean, because they didn't have the proper cash flow to run a business. So how can supply chain contribute? Is what I'm going to tell you. Power off යන්නේ. Right. So, final slide, I think. This is how does supply chain contribute to turnover? What do they do? You need to make sure when an order comes, that stock should be there to supply. So some companies say on-time delivery or customer case fill on time. Different terminologies are used. So I've listed few things. And not only that, if you're selling it to your product should be available in the shop also, on the rack or shelf. So sometimes you may send it, but they will not properly put it on the shelf and then people will not buy. Even if you send it, if they don't put it on the shelf. So there is another metric. Mostly in consumer goods industry, we talk it on shelf availability. No point in you sending it to the customer. If they have not put it on the shelf, consumers will not buy. So there are other things that is happening behind the scene in the shop also, which prevents them getting onto the shelf. That's another thing. So if that happens, if these two are there, you will achieve your turnover. If it is going from the company, customer case will on time, turnover comes. But repeat purchase will not happen if it doesn't end up on the shelf. So when the stocks come down only, they will start ordering again, right? So that's turnover. So if you increase your customer service, your turnover will go up. So this is how you should market what you do in the supply chain. If your customer case fill on time has increased from 90% to 95%, tell the company this much of turnover million rupees we have given, that each 1% increase is giving this. There are norms like that. So you should market like that. Otherwise, sales will always get the credit and poor supply chains don't get anything at all. They will get incentivized and all of that. So you need to show your contribution, not only supply chain. I'm saying all of you must realize what value you create from your function in the language that the board understands. Very important. Otherwise, we are very innocent people coming and saying things, technical terms, nobody will understand in the board. I'm telling you. Because in board meetings, we have a small time attention span. They are not willing to talk about all these little data and graphs. Show visual things and talk about in the way that they understand. Then it's easy for them for you all to touch their sweet spot. That is when they understand. Don't go and talk about technical supply chain or marketing or whatever stuff. So showing the language how you can create value, right? Not only for supply chain. Some of you said profits. This is how you create value, right? So what are the costs? Material costs, distribution costs, factory overhead costs, business waste, demurrage, detention, rejections in the factory flow. A lot of things you do that actually erodes your profits. So reduce the business waste, negotiate well and get a good cost, material price, negotiate with your transporters and shipping companies and get a proper distribution rate and freight costs. Optimally operate your factory and reduce your conversion costs. So labor, energy, all those costs can be reduced. So you should have benchmarks. The accountants should support the supply chain people to show these figures. And if you reduce all of that, obviously, your profits will go up. Then next is cash. Cash is important. Cash is king actually these days because now we have a difficult economic situation. So you need to have cash. To do that, you need to have inventory, but inventory unsold, amazing. You must sell it. If it's lying in the warehouse, your money is stuck there. It's opportunity cost. Might as well put a fixed deposit or something and do that rather than doing a business, right? And then creditors, when you negotiate with the suppliers, try to don't pay up front. You try to see now, of course, people are now looking at other payment terms post-COVID, but all that has to be looked at. And then debtors, collect monies, non-performing katiyo tiyaganna naduwa, quickly get money so that you have cash with you, your working capital. If you can manage, you take a long time to pay, collect money up front, You can manage from other people's money then. That's what supermarket chains are doing. No, they get cash from us, take a long time to pay for the poor suppliers. Right? So they are cash rich that way. So you should be able to manage your supply chain like that. And not only that, now, as I mentioned to you, companies are now focusing on carbon footprint. Companies have to show how environmentally supportive and environmentally friendly. And you need to also work collaboratively. Collaboration is the name of the game now, right? You can't go on some, you might have to compete with, partner with your competition. They call co-petition. Collaborate with competition, co-petition. During COVID, FedEx and UPS together delivered the vaccine. They are arch rivals. They did that. Even in Apple and Samsung are producing Foxconn because they know leverage their scale advantage. So where you are not competing, you can come to collaborate, right? So collaboration with your competition, collaborate with your suppliers, collaborate with your customers, and compliance. You can't do things you were asking, no, whether it will be fair, fair whatever trade. You were asking a question. If you pay a decent salary, you will go out of business. No, you have to collaborate, compliant. The law of the land has to be fully adhered to. Even if you don't do this here, if you try to export, you will get exposed. Right? They will check it now. Right? So this is how you should show, and this is how supply chain creates value. And I call it 6 C's. So the cost, customer service, because customer service, when you do that, you achieve your turnover, then your cost, your cash, carbon footprint, then collaboration, compliance. So 6 C's. If I ask a question, again, 3 questions, I said, I don't know when I will send the paper, but these are the type of questions. So how can you create value through 6 C's with examples? You should be able to give examples and tell in a company, this is what we can do. If you're an apparel company, you can talk about apparel. If you're working for a software company, you can talk about software. So like that, you can explain so that it will create value for your company while passing the exam also, right? Okay. So that concludes. Sorry, I had to take a few minutes of your time, but this is what I mentioned. Please spend about 5 minutes or 10 minutes at least every day, not only for this, if you're willing to do that for others, other modules, do that. And it will be a short note for you, and also what you learn from this session. And one thing you implement in the company. While you're doing the MBA, you will also start doing things, improving. Bosses will notice you. They will start giving you promotion, whatever. You never know. Because I know those who have done MBA, and when they contribute, they get promoted in companies. So obviously, people will see the change in you, the transformation in you, because MBA will transform you to be better managers and leaders. So I'm sure you pick up something and it will serve you at the exam as well. So please start practicing this. This is a very powerful tool, and I do that. I didn't do that during my MBA. Later on, I learned this, but it will save time for you. So with that, I conclude today's session. If you have any more questions, you can ask. I normally want to do a quiz, but today there's no time. And let's go to the learning outcome and see whether you understood. Read that and see whether there is anything that you wanted to learn. Whether you have some percentage-wise, tell me how much of achievement that you got for your learning outcome. Learning outcome. Too many note take learning outcome. Too many slide deck. So just go to that. What about be able to demonstrate knowledge and understanding on how suppliers, distributors, and the firms are linked together in a competitive environment through a value chain? What percentage of understanding have I, or was I able to give it to you? I don't know whether, I don't know, those who got late may not get the full picture, but those who were there in the class, 20%, 30%, even if you say 0, I will agree. It's an improvement area for me, but I don't think it's 0%. But do you think that you have achieved the ILO learning outcome? Or if any area that you want more understanding, maybe you can reach out to me. And maybe if I did a Kahoot quiz, then I would know. I would know. I didn't have time to fix it today. So let's do a quiz next time. So next time I'm going to talk about supply chain risk management and all of that, which all these things that are happening and inundated with risks that we see in the market, we will talk about it. So think of some examples in the global arena, in your companies, the risks that you are expecting plus the risks that you are impacted by. So it will help us to discuss next time. If you don't have any questions, let's call it a day. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah. What you advise from other divisions, right? So we have in my company, we have a efficiency and the responsive both, but we have a clash from sales side. Supply chain always have a clash. What is your advice to make that conflict?
It's a very long, it's a consultancy exercise, but let's offline discuss. I mean, it's a common thing, supply chain and sales conflicts, but I think you need to be empathetic towards each other's needs. You need to be open about the issues that you're facing with them and without blaming and pointing a finger at them. And you need to, as the two teams must meet up and understand, okay, this is what this happened and this is what got impacted. Same way, they'll also have their own version. So openly, without pointing a finger at the problem, the person, but the issue, if you address the issue, then you will be able to come to a compromise. Very often, I mean, I'll have a lot of examples offline, I can tell you, because very often, one example, if anybody wants to go, can go. One example I used to experience with my team in logistics and sales is, towards the end of the month, you guys are good at selling things. What you didn't sell in the initial month, so you try to achieve your target in the last few days. So what I always tell is respect the lead time. Please, if you send something before a particular time, we will deliver it within that particular time duration. But if you do it after that, then it will go to the next day. Because last day, normally your normal order must be around 100 truckloads. And last 2 days, you want 300 trucks. That's impossible. So like that, you tell them, please respect, right? Because everyone has their own limitation. So with that, putting that cutoff time helped us. And then also we said, if you want some additional thing above the ordinary this thing, then the budget additional spot market rate will be on your sales account. So you are then responsible, right? And also at the board level, actually chairman's level, sales and supply chain directors, it became a joint target for target delivery. So then you will, without compromising the cost. So customer case fill on time, which I showed you earlier, became a joint target for sales and this thing. Therefore, you cannot compromise one and achieve the other, right? Because you go and sell for the next 2 months requirement on 2 days, and the next month they will not buy. So we show the trend and say, okay, tell me now how you will sell it in the first week. If you don't sell it, we will not do this again. So like that, you hold people accountable. That's very important. Holding people accountable for their responsibility. So for that, you need to have data. You need to be open about it without pointing a finger at others. Try to solve the issue. Our problem is, you keep blaming each other. So then people become angry and then, conflicts start. So issue at a high level, you should promote that behavior. You bring the teams together, solve the problem. Put all the issues on the table. Let's see. Then somebody has to be moderating at the senior level. I don't know either. So let's offline discuss if you want more details. Okay? Okay, good night, everyone.